Jenny kneeling in the rain weeping at the sight of the incident. Indeed, this was never part of the plan. Who will come wake me from this terrible nightmare? That's my wife. And that is my best friend. Having the best time of their lives right under my roof in my matrimonial bed. Oh, the pains, the tears, the two people I loved and trusted the most became snakes overnight. Frank has everything. The money, the house, the woman. But Frank is soft. And in this city, soft gets you replaced. Kemi didn't just take my wife. He tried to take my life. In the heart of Lagos, where the skyline glitters with the promise of wealth and the streets hum with secrets, lived Kemi. To the world, Kemi was the ultimate catch. He was a senior consultant at a top firm, drove a sleek charcoal SUV, and lived in a minimalist penthouse in Ikoyi. His best friend, Frank, was the person who knew him best, or so Frank thought. Frank was a self-made tech entrepreneur, a man of simple taste despite his deep pockets. Frank's world revolved around his business and his wife, Jenny, a woman whose beauty was only matched by her quiet elegance. Kemi was a master of the double life. In Frank's presence, he was the disciplined bachelor, always talking about, waiting for the right one. But once the sun set, Kemi was a predator in bespoke suits. He had a different phone for his conquest and a no-strings policy that worked like a charm until he got bored. One Friday evening, over glasses of expensive cognac at Frank's Lekki mansion, Kemi sighed deeply. "Frank, man, this house is too quiet," Kemi lied, leaning back. "My penthouse feels like a graveyard lately. I'm thinking of doing some renovations, but the thought of staying in a hotel for a month is depressing." Frank, ever the brother's keeper, didn't hesitate. "Renovations? Say no more. Move into the guest wing here. Jenny has been complaining that the house is too big for just the two of us anyway." Kemi smiled. It was the smile of a wolf being invited into the sheepfold. For the first week, Kemi was the perfect guest. He brought Jenny flowers, just to thank her for the hospitality, and engaged Frank in endless talks about stocks. But when Frank left for his 5 a.m. gym sessions or late-night boardroom meetings, the atmosphere changed. Kemi began by noticing the little things Frank overlooked. "That dress looks incredible on you, Jenny." "Frank is lucky, but I wonder if he tells you that enough." Jenny, initially guarded, found her defenses melting. Kemi wasn't just handsome, he was attentive in a way that Frank, consumed by work, had ceased to be. One rainy Tuesday, while Frank was in Abuja for a contract signing, the line was crossed. A shared glass of wine turned into a lingering touch, which turned into a passionate mistake in the hallway. The mistake became a routine. Kemi's secret life had found its way into his best friend's bed. 2 weeks later, Frank returned early from a meeting. It was 11 p.m. The house was eerie and silent. He went to the guest wing to check on Kemi, thinking they could catch a late-night football match. The bed was neatly made, but Kemi was nowhere to be found. As Frank turned to leave, he heard a faint, rhythmic thudding coming from the master bedroom. His heart skipped. Jenny should have been asleep. He walked down the corridor, his footsteps muffled by the thick Persian rug. The door to his own bedroom was slightly ajar. Through the crack, the moonlight illuminated the betrayal. It wasn't just sex, it was the sight of his brother, his best friend, and his soulmate intertwined in the space he called sacred. Frank didn't scream. He didn't charge in. The air left his lungs as if he'd been punched. He backed away, his eyes stinging, and stumbled out of the house. Frank fumbled with his car keys, his hands shaking so violently he nearly dropped them. He cranked the engine and sped out of the driveway, the image of Kemi and Jenny burned into his retinas. He drove blindly toward the Lekki Expressway, the tears blurring the taillights ahead of him. How could he? How could she? The questions looped in his mind like a broken record. He didn't see the heavy-duty truck stored in the middle of the road without hazard lights. He didn't hear the screech of his own brakes. The sound of twisting metal echoed through the night. Frank's car was a crumpled heap of steel beneath the truck's chassis. Back at the house, the silence was finally broken by Frank's phone, which he had left on the bedside table in his haste. It buzzed incessantly with a notification from the vehicle's automated emergency system. Kemi and Jenny, now startled and wrapped in sheets, looked at the screen. The caller ID read, "Emergency sensor, severe impact detected." The weight of what they had done finally settled in the room, heavier than the silence that preceded it. The sirens of the ambulance were the only sounds that filled the Lagos night as Frank was rushed to the intensive care unit. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere had turned toxic. The adrenaline of their secret affair had been replaced by a cold, paralyzing guilt. Kemi and Jenny stood in the sterile hallway of the private hospital, unable to look at each other. When the doctor finally emerged, his face was grim. "He's stable, but it's a miracle," the doctor whispered. "Internal bleeding, a broken ribs, and a severe concussion. He needs absolute rest." For 3 days, Jenny sat by his bed, weeping and praying. Kemi, ever the coward when things got real, stayed in the cafeteria at the parking lot, unable to face the man whose life he had nearly extinguished. On the 4th day, Frank opened his eyes. He saw Jenny sitting there, her eyes puffy. She reached for his hand, her voice trembling. "Frank, oh thank God, you're awake." Frank didn't pull away. He didn't have the strength. He simply looked at her with eyes so cold they seemed to freeze the room. "Get out," he rasped, his voice a dry whisper. "Frank, please, let me explain." "I saw you, Jenny," he said, a single tear escaping. "I saw everything. Call my lawyer. And tell Kemi, tell him if he is still in my house when I get back, I won't be the one ending up in a hospital next time." Against medical advice, Frank checked himself out only 2 days later. He arrived at the Lekki mansion with his chest heavily bandaged and a cane in his hand. The house was empty. Kemi had cleared his things in the middle of the night, fleeing like a thief. Jenny's side of the closet was half empty. Frank sat in his study, staring at a photo of him and Kemi from their university days. He realized then that Kemi's wealth was just a cover for a hollow soul. He deleted Kemi's number, blocked him on every platform, and instructed his security guards that Kemi was never to step foot on the property again. 2 weeks passed. Frank was sitting on his patio, the physical pain of his injuries fading, but the emotional ache remained sharp. A taxi pulled up to the gate. It was Jenny. She looked a shadow of her former self. No makeup, hair disheveled, wearing a simple dress. The guards let her in only because Frank signaled them. She walked up to him, stopping several feet away. "Frank," she started, her voice cracking. "I'm not here to ask for the house or the money. I'm not even here to ask you to take me back. I needed to tell you how sorry I am." Frank stayed silent, watching her. "Kemi. He's a monster," she sobbed. "The moment we left the hospital, he stopped caring. He told me it was just a game to him and that I shouldn't have taken it seriously. I lost everything for a man who didn't even like me. I betrayed the only man who truly loved me for a ghost." Frank leaned on his cane and stood up slowly. He looked at her, the woman he had built his life around. "The tragedy isn't that you cheated, Jenny," Frank said calmly. "The tragedy is that you did it with the person I trusted most in this world. You didn't just break our marriage, you killed my brother. Kemi is dead to me, and as of this moment, so are you." He turned his back on her and walked into the house, closing the glass doors. Through the reflection, he saw her collapse to her knees on the pavement, weeping. Kemi tried to move on, but in the tight-knit circles of the wealthy elite, news of his betrayal spread like wildfire. Business partners stopped taking his calls. The well-to-do bachelor found himself socially exiled, his penthouse feeling more like a prison than ever. Frank, though scarred, began the slow process of healing. He realized that sometimes, a crash is the only way to clear the road for a better journey.